Well, in our first story, Minister of State in charge of public-private partnerships says government is ready to sign the controversial economic partnership agreement, which critics say will hand over the economic control of 16 West African states to the European Union. Rashid Pelpo says it will be too costly not to sign because the EPA is tied to aid, technical assistance, political relationship and trade. The EPA has gone through a serious negotiation process aimed at granting access to European and African markets. Discussions have traveled for some 12 years now. The European Union wants 100% tax-free access on African markets, but Ghana and some other West African countries are negotiating for between some 60 and 75% access. The agreement will involve reducing and removing import duties of European manufactured goods from roofing sheets to toilet rolls. Europe will also remove quotas, duties on African exports to the EU. Speaking on Saturday on News File, the Minister of State argued that in the absence of a viable alternative, Ghana's economy stands little chance of boycotting the agreement.
This can be solved by a political decision, no longer trade decisions. We need to have ECOWAS go beyond trade negotiations. At the moment, we have the MMCs and their experts, I mean the ministerial monitoring committees and their experts, who go to sit down and forge out the ideas. And the MMCs are saying governments don't sign. We don't think that there's something good in it. And there's pressure also from our friends, from the NGOs, and who are telling us that this is bad. Now we need to go beyond that. And the supposition is that if by October we are unable to sign this agreement, there will be consequences. Let's measure the consequences against the reality of the fact that we are in the regime, the present regime, and exporting and being treated in a preferential way and giving it the status of a preferred customer. Now, if you are not, and you have to pay all the tariffs, the small businesses in Ghana will collapse. We will have to get to a point when we have to agree and sign this agreement. We can't continue saying we won't sign and not giving reasons why we can't sign, and not also giving reasons why at one point we have to sign. Okay. There must be a point when we have to agree and sign this agreement, because we are in a situation where you don't have too much loud a voice, because in a relationship where you look, this agreement is also tied to aid, it's tied to technical assistance, it's tied to political relationships, and it's tied to trade. It's not just trade. So if your budget is not balancing and every time you depend on somebody to balance your budget, and you now say you won't sign the agreement with him, they'll pull out in that aid because it's tied to it. If they were giving technical assistance to your ministries, your departments, and even agencies and other non-governmental organizations, and you now say you won't sign, they pull out of it. And so plus the trade agreements, which will allow you to have freedom of access to their market, and for them to also have freedom of access to our market. So it's a whole lot of complications that need to be sought out. That's why it's going beyond the fact that you should negotiate about trade to now negotiate about politics, the politics about it. Okay. And we are encouraging our presidents to sit down with them and now say, look, we've gotten to a point where there's a deadlock. Let's agree on this. And if they agree at the political level, it can come down and we can have this.
An 18-year-old junior high school pupil of the Mangu Methodist Junior High School in the Wa municipality of the Upper West region met his untimely death on Sunday when he drowned in a dam at Bilibo. The body of the deceased, identified as Ben Idi Musa, has since been retrieved by divers from a neighboring district. A report by Rafiq Salam from Wa.
According to Mohammed Zakaria, the assemblyman for the Dokpon electoral area, the incident took place at about 4 p.m. when 18-year-old Ben Idi Musa joined 7 other children from Kambali, a suburb of Wa, to the Wadia Dam, popularly known as Bilibu, at the outskirts of Wa, to swim. Shortly after they started swimming, Ben drowned, prompting the others to move out of the waters. An initial search for the body of the drowned person was unsuccessful, largely due to a heavy downpour. The body was later found after about 11 p.m. by divers from Sakana in the Naudoli district after some sacrifices had been performed. The father of the deceased, Issa Musa, though saddened by the news, said he could not question what has happened. Ben Idi Musa is the sixth person to have drowned in the dam in the past 4 years. The Wa Municipal Chief Executive, Isahaku Nuhu, who visited the scene, revealed plans by the Assembly to make the dam site safe.
We will try and see how to station somebody here to make sure that we protect the water, and also even see whether we can get some kind of revenue from the place. This water, people fetch it so much for commercial activities. Probably the one who is there can get some tokens from people who come around to fetch the water for selling.
In keeping with the custom and tradition of the people, a person who drowns in water is buried close to the scene of the incident. But grave diggers who tried to dig a grave for the burial of Idi Musa faced resistance from some persons who claimed to be owners of the land earmarked for the burial. Rafiq Salam's report from Wa.
Well, health officials will later today hold an emergency meeting following the death of a child at the Komfanoche Teaching Hospital suspected to have been caused by the Ebola virus.
Well, so far samples from the child have been sent to the Noguchi Research Institute at Legon, that is the University of Ghana, to determine whether indeed he died from the Ebola virus or not. Meanwhile, residents of Kumasi have appealed to health authorities to tighten public education on the virus.
Yes, Mark, this is an unconfirmed report, but I can also say that this particular issue that we are discussing here came about because officials, doctors and nurses at the Komfanoche Teaching Hospital have been on red alert. It's a result of the alertness of the medical staff here that brought about this incident. I'm told this particular girl in question is a 12-year-old girl who was referred from the Ejiso Hospital, and she has a history of living in Mali. Possibly the parents have brought her from Mali to live in the Ejiso vicinity, so she was referred from Ejiso to Komfanoche Teaching Hospital, and she exhibited this particular sign of fever and bleeding. And don't forget that fever and bleeding is also associated with the Ebola disease, and it's also associated with many medical conditions. So the doctors and the nurses here are ready thought it wise to also go a step further by also asking health officials here to carry further tests on this black girl. So the blood samples of this 12-year-old girl has been sent to the Noguchi Memorial Medical Center, and that happened this morning. Up to 6 now, it's possible that it is in the lab of the Noguchi Memorial, where it will take about 2 or 3 days to get the results, and then from there, the medical or health officials in the region can also talk about this. I must also stress that here at the Komfanoche Teaching Hospital, medical officers are on red alert, and they have been collaborating with the regional health directorate to ensure that everything is brought under control. Nobody is panicking here. At the pediatric emergency ward, for instance, where the victim was admitted, it's a normal day, it's a normal day for them. And
several houses in Sakogu, which is a farming community in the East Mamprusi district of the Northern region, were on Sunday morning set ablaze in renewed clashes between Mamprusi's Kokumbers and Bimobers. The violent clashes in the district started last Thursday after a man suspected to be a Bimoba was shot dead by some Taboses at Igbing, Bamong.
Well, the violent clashes have over the past 3 days spread to neighboring communities such as Bogne and Sakogu. The affected persons are meanwhile appealing to the district chief executive of the area and the member of parliament for the constituency for the area to intervene in the impasse just to restore some calm.
Well, 2 persons were reportedly killed on Saturday night, whilst another was injured in similar exchanges between the 2 ethnic groups in the area. The district police has meanwhile dispatched a team of personnel to the area to keep the peace.
Well, there's always a question about whether you need it or not. And, well, are you tired of paying rent and eagerly waiting to build your own house? There's a question I guess we all need to ponder. The good news is that you could own just a single room at a cost of just 350 Ghana cedis, somewhere in Ghana.
And now that we have your attention, all you need to do is to relocate from wherever you are to Atani in the Bunahafu region and get yourself a single room mud house. Our colleague Jojo Kobina has more.
Atani is located in the Tyne district of the Bunahafu region. Here there is no housing deficit, no real estate agents needed, just communal help and little money. George Lange is 17. He is the reason why friends and family have gathered to build this room. After this room is completed, he will move away from his parents' house, and the next step in his life is to find a wife with free clay. Children who are eager to provide labor, and a clay craftsman. This house will be completed in less than a month. This is because 2 to 3 days interval is needed to allow the clay to dry before construction continues. It may seem easy, but it takes great skills to get it right. Tiredness sets in, and they pause to refuel before getting back to work. Roofing and plastering will cost 250 Ghana cedis. Land will cost 50 Ghana cedis. Carpenter and mason will charge 50 Ghana cedis.
When you say we will be plaster, we use cement base 6 bags and 7 bags. That's not what you use. The ceiling need the account, ceiling need the obey ceiling need the ever cost. We are senior me boss we are me plaster no. Into me person me best but my next month na be sim no. And in the end me be
People who live in mud houses say, apart from the low cost of building, the rooms are also very cool, especially at night. You may have concerns about the robustness of mud houses, but the people who live in them will lessen your fears.
Well, we had that way, so we am no more warm, maybe, and say that is where many not to me who you could have bit made Chetu. We bit me so many swabuna, so not yet, Tiana Betty.
George has plans of painting the house and decorating it.
Which one would you want?
350 Ghana cedis only to own a house.
Yeah, that is at least in the face of having nothing at all. If you can have a house for 350 Ghana cedis, yeah. That's a whole room for you. You put your,
and you own it.
I can imagine in a nice mud house, well plastered, and you have your nice painting and decor. You put your flat screen there. Yeah, I want to see that on social media. You know, so the way sometimes they are able to use CorelDRAW or Photoshop somehow to be able to do something.
But you know, we would all be rushing for those houses if they were in Accra, really. And then we'll modify them in a way.
Yeah. But that brings to mind why we have not been in a position to use, you know, the clay or the mud into something of a very good building material.
That's true.
For some simple housing, you know, fabrication sort of.
All right,
we'll have to move on.
From Atani, we come back to reality.
Yes, and the reality is that there's been an increment on the price of premix fuel.
Which means we're not only paying more for transportation, we're also paying more for the fish that we eat. Here's Jojo Kobina again.
Sunday is usually not too busy in Jamestown fishing community. Fishermen rest, plan their week and mend nets. But these fishermen have more on their minds. Increase in premix fuel. They now have to pay 3 cedis more than they used to pay.
Latte Mensa said previously 54 cedis worth of premixed fuel powered his outboard motor, but now he pays 57 cedis. Fishermen want government to stabilize premix since constant hikes disrupt fishing activity.
Apart from 420 yeah, I'm feel cool. Come on, go back. I don't know. Make ya. No go grab any bachaki. I'm call him. I'm a chia. I'm a back. I'm a farm. I'm a trash. I'm bios and the cocrapo.
Fishmongers said the public should not expect prices of fish to remain the same. But while they want prices of premix to stabilize, they're also worried about vessels that fish with strong lights at night.
So what would you walk 26 kilometers for? Perhaps a movie, fun, or you would not want to walk that far? I know a lot of us would not. Well, some children in the Afram Plains South District have to walk 26 kilometers. Guess what? To get an education. Some of these children and their families have been forced to find a way out.
It's a Sunday and residents are either in church or resting. The communities are far in between, but we are trying to reach Wenamda, 26 kilometers from the main town. It's a bush path and quite a distance. 9 kilometers into our journey, we found the school. It is 16th March 2014. The last time this school was in session was 4th March 2014. So we went 3 kilometers further in search of the teacher, and we found him celebrating Mass with residents. He's actually the catechist of the Catholic Church, which somehow explains why the school was on break for 8 days.
There was a teacher here, and that teacher died. From that, about 3 years, we didn't see any teacher here again. But we see the need for the children to have education. So I volunteered to be helping them in the school year. Okay. The 4th was on Tuesday, and Wednesday I have to go to market. So I went to the market, and the following day was 5th March. We couldn't come. And the next day, Friday, was a 5th March holiday. So just last Monday, and Tuesday I have to go to Karakis meeting at Samanshia. After the Karakis meeting, we were to go to Karakis Lenten retreat at Dongokro. So I just came yesterday.
Some of the children have to walk either 12 or 26 kilometers to regular school. Those who walk 12 kilometers attend the school in Krantinkrachi. Those who walk for 26 kilometers have a reason for avoiding the school in Krantinkrachi.
Teachers for number in a school and drew baby I want and drew. I'm going to Dokro to go to school, but the reason this school is not good. The teachers are not coming, and here is village, so we cannot stay here and go to school. Sundays we live here. The school here is bad, so we have to walk. If Father Stephen does not come, we walk. So if I walk to Donkokrom, I stay with my sister. So Monday morning I wake up and go to school.
Father Stephen is always a welcome sight in these communities, as it means less walking and less stress. And after a 14-kilometer drive, they are ready to get down. Tuesday morning, we were back to check on the school in Krantenkrachi. As at 10 a.m., there was only one of 4 teachers in the school. A second teacher was on maternity leave, and a third teacher, the pupils were sure would show up because he's usually punctual. He arrived at 11 a.m. and classes started.
I was here as a youth employment teacher, but later we had, we were recruited under the GS. KG1, KG2 and the P1, they are all in one class. But in the GS regulations, P1 and then P6, the students combine. They are not supposed to combine them because that's the transitional class. But here is the case that we are not many, so we need to combine them so that we can let the children stay.
The fourth teacher had not communicated to pupils or co-teachers. No one knew where he was. So a pupil's attempt to motivate him went to waste. They tried to make the best of the day.
D, B. Obviously D, B. Dog. Dog. D, O, D, dog.
You, obviously dog. You, find you.
At this rate, it is not possible to tell when or if MDG-2A, which is to ensure that by 2015, children everywhere, boys and girls alike, will be able to complete a full course of primary schooling, will be achieved.
And several kilometers away, you travel to the eastern part of Ghana. There's a young lady who has dreamt to also be in senior high school, just like many of her peers. But, well, if school is not coming, she has been very innovative and done something good for her community. We went to look at what her story really was. The story of Venice.
Venice completed junior high school a year ago. Her parents could not afford to send her to senior high school, so she's found something to do in the meantime.
Because we don't have school here, many of the people go to school at Kwabwanta, which is very far from this place. Many walked, and before they got there, it's late. And even some don't go to school because the way is too long. Due to that, many of our colleagues are, because they don't go to school, many of them are pregnant, and even drug abuse has come very hard in the community.
Venice helps solve a bigger problem for her community, the absence of educational facilities. Beriche in the Upper West Akim district has never had a school. This is actually a church hall on weekends and an improvised classroom on weekdays. It's not much, but it's a start. The older children have to make the daily journey to and from school. So sometimes they make the decision not to attend school. On this day, a number of them are home, and they explain how it feels like having to walk to school 7 kilometers to and from school.
Local school, ayana watradia. 58 no kwa 9 hon. Amen. Tiache papa. Na 50 ako 10 hon. Doko tunu ho de metiasin. Nyina. Aya me ponso me 2 hours na ebedufi.
The district is a new one which has not received funds from government in the last 8 months, and so is unable to solve this problem.
What we inherited as a new district was very, very serious. We had a lot to do in terms of provision of the right infrastructure to give a conducive environment for learning. We've made a lot in trying to remedy the situation, but we admit it's a lot that will need time. But it's our priority when it comes to education, when it comes to projects that we have to tackle in the district. And we see educational infrastructure in the district as one of the major challenges which we have to overcome to ensure that the standards of education in the district is uplifted. A chunk of our budget is being targeted to educational infrastructure. Yes, we know some of them are in very bad state, but we are working on them and we need the support of our other developmental partners.
Help may be on its way as a group of young people are trying to raise funds to put up a school.
With the help of several people, the organization is made up of 10 people, myself included, 9 of them in Ghana and myself here in the United States. And all of us are working together to make this dream a reality, because young people are also able to do something. We can't just leave everything to the more well-established. We also have to leave our mark in history.
Yeah, for now, I can't tell you, we've not raised even up to 1,000 because we wrote to some individual donors who are us that they will see what they can do. So we don't have a cash at hand that we'll be able to raise because we're still waiting for people that we're waiting to them to just sponsor or support us, either in kind or cash, because there are some people they can't give us a cash, but they have the building materials. If they are willing to give it to us, we just mobilize those materials and then complete the project.
And once the school structure goes up, that would be one problem less for Beviche, one that is very welcome.
And it's an inspiration to see very young people do something not only for themselves, but for their communities as well. I hope that story inspires you.
Yes, and especially for those other young people who are Ghanaians living abroad, especially in the U.S., trying to make sure they contribute their bit to communities in Ghana, would say that is laudable.
We'll turn attention to the TUC now, and the Ghana Trade Union Congress has expressed stern disapproval of proposed austere measures contained in the policy statement on Ghana's economy presented by the Minister of Finance to Parliament last week.
In particular, the Labour Organization said in a report that it finds it strange that government is considering a freeze on pay increases for workers for 2014. The lengthy report signed by TUC General Secretary Kofi Asamoah on the Finance and Economic Planning Minister Setekpe's presentation to Parliament on April 1, 2014 also insisted that the single spine pay policy was not the cause of the country's economic challenges as suggested early on by the minister.
Instead, the TUC is convinced Ghana's economic challenges is as a result of how the economy is being managed or mismanaged. According to the TUC, the removal of subsidies on fuel and utilities, the increase in the highly retrogressive VAT from 15 to 17.5% on consumer items including food and medicine are the main causes of the increasing inflation and costs in living in the country, and urged government to look in that direction.
We'll have to turn our attention to mainstream party politics, and the national chairperson of the Convention People's Party, Samia Nkrumah, is calling for more commitment and loyalty from party members to break the duopoly of the two main political parties in Ghana, that is the NDC and the MPP.
So she says the CPP, in order to break that duopoly of the NDC and NPP over decision making and be part of what she described as a rebirth of the party, it needs internal reforms to determine how close they can get to political power.
Samia Nkrumah was addressing a National Executive Council meeting in Tamale to discuss how to improve the party's chances in the next general elections. The meeting was also used to devise strategies that will ensure the smooth running of the party.
If our aim is to emerge from the 2016 election as decision makers to impact on the lives of Ghanaians in a positive manner, then we can only do this by destroying the duopoly, the hegemony, the control of the two main parties.
She also expressed worry about the manner in which some members of the CPP are easily bought to join the two main political parties, the NDC and NPP, a development she says weakens and erodes the message of the party.
If you ask me, what is the single most important requirement for us to return to power, I would tell you without hesitation, it is members who are committed to our vision to free our country from dependence. Loyal members who cannot succumb to fear, members who cannot be tempted, members who cannot be bought.
Hashmin Mohammed's report for Joynews.
I guess we have to wish the CPP all the best. But that'll be it for the news wrap-up on the AM show. Before we go to a recap of our top stories.
Our Minister of State in charge of Public-Private Partnership, Rachel Perpo, says government is ready to sign the EPA agreement to foster technical assistance, political relationship and trade with the European Union.
Several houses in Sakobu, a farming community in the East Mamprosi district of the Northern region, were destroyed over the weekend in renewed clashes between Mamprosis, Kokumbas and Bimobes.
And the Noguchi Research Center at the University of Ghana will later today confirm whether blood samples taken from a young girl at the Konfanochi Teaching Hospital is indeed Ebola.
We have a lot more news tidbits each of the hours you'll be spending with us for the morning. But next, we bring you sports.
And it's brought to you by Cowbell. Stay with us here on the AM show.
All right, back.